The U.S. Navy releasing new video overnight of what it's calling a, quote, unsafe interaction from over the weekend. You can see a Chinese warship coming within 150 yards and crossing in front of a U.S. destroyer in the Taiwan Strait. China's defense minister defending the move yesterday, while also admitting a war between China and the U.S. would be a, quote, unbearable disaster for the world. I want to bring in retired two-star Marine Corps General, the Punaro Group CEO and author of The Ever-Shrinking Fighting Force, Arnold Punaro. Sir, good morning to you. It's always great to speak to you on this topic. Look, China's not backing down. Xi Jinping is not backing down. And they've again proven that over the weekend by letting this warship get close to ours.
Well, Cheryl, always a privilege to be with you. And this is part of a larger pattern of Chinese Communist Party malign, aggressive behavior across the board, whether it's economically, where they use their economic largesse to go into countries, buy influence, and then push those countries to take positions inimical to the United States and the democratic interest, diplomatically, where they've established more diplomatic posts around the world than the United States, and they're building forward operating bases and logistics places where we would not like to see them. Technologically, as you well know and your panel knows, they steal our intellectual property and that of our allies to build their economy and build their military. And now, of course, militarily, where they're challenging a United States warship totally in the right place in international waters. The Chung-Hoon conducting freedom of navigation operations in the Taiwan Straits, exactly where they had a right to be. The U.S. Navy has been doing this for over 30 years, whether it's in the Taiwan Straits or the South China Sea, or off the coast of Iran in international waters. And so we have to basically protect these sea lanes of communications. For example, in the South China Sea, over $5 trillion of trade passes through there on an annual basis. So those sea lanes need to be kept open. And so the Chinese Navy needs to understand that our Navy can sink their Navy. They should have learned a little bit about the namesake of that great warship, Chung-Hoon. That person that it's named after basically won the Navy Cross and the Silver Star in the Battle of Okinawa, defeating the Japanese Navy.
You know, another thing about China is a silly question, but what are they doing with Ukraine and Russia? Because now you've got the Chinese that seem to be more and more inserting themselves into the Russia-Ukraine war. Not sure what the Chinese are up to or what their ultimate goal is. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, look, the last thing that we would want to see happening would be for China to be supplying lethal weapons and arms and supplies to Russia in the Ukrainian war. Again, as Zelensky and the Ukrainian military is poised for their spring offensive, and frankly, they have been decimating the Russian military, one of our key adversaries and one of the key challenges in our national security strategy. Let's hope in some of these recent communications between our country and China, we basically put our foot down and basically said, look, you can't be doing this. And so I'll be honest with you, I don't have any good inside information. Certainly, China on the surface seems to say they want to try to work something out. But I, as Ronald Reagan would say, trust but verify. I would not trust the Chinese at all.
Good, very good saying. I want to move on to these comments from Darrell Issa, the California congressman, calling out the Biden administration for the timing of two senior officials' trip to China. The officials arriving in China yesterday. This is the 34th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. They were there for other business. So Issa telling Fox News Digital, this is no ordinary foreign policy stumble. It's a major coup for Xi. And America's position in the world just got weaker where it matters most. These officials aren't going there to lay a wreath. These officials aren't going there to talk about freedom. Your reaction?
Well, I would say, again, try to put this in a little bit bigger strategic framework. And I would say that George Washington had a saying, to be prepared for war is one of the most effective ways of preserving the peace. We're not as prepared as we need to be, particularly vis-a-vis China. One of the things I would say immediately, the Congress and the administration should be implementing the 10 recommendations that have just come out from Mike Gallagher, chair of the China Select, with his ranking member, Rajiv Krishnamurthy. 10 things that could be done right away to strengthen We want deterrence. We want to deter war. We don't want to have a war with China. We don't want to have a war with anyone. But you've got to deter war when you're dealing with autocrats like Xi Jinping. We do need to have communications with our adversaries. We certainly had it in the peak of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. There was a system called the Moscow-Washington Hotline, which was nicknamed the MOLINK. And basically, you have that ability to communicate in times of crisis, so there's no miscalculation, so you don't stumble into, you're right, what would be a very devastating conflict. Again, you want to deter war. We need to build up our preparedness. We need to basically operate from a position of strength. In terms of the timing of the visits, I don't, unfortunately, have any real details on that situation. I do think it is important for us to be able to communicate with our adversaries.
I'm glad you're saying that. I agree with you. Liz Peek, jump in real quick.
Sometimes China becomes especially provocative militarily when their economy is struggling. And it seems to me this is exactly what's happening now. Youth unemployment is above 20%. The economy can't really get out of its trench. Do you think that's a bigger problem as we go forward, as pushing this aggression?
Well, Liz, I thought you had some excellent observations earlier about the American people are paying attention, and we all should pay attention to what China is doing on the march in the 4 areas I mentioned early: economically, diplomatically, technologically, and militarily. And yes, the main thing that the Chinese Communist Party values the most, and this is why they killed hundreds, if not thousands, of their own people 34 years ago in Tiananmen Square, because they were challenging the rule of the Chinese Communist Party. That's what they fear the most. At risk is their power. And certainly as your economy struggles and as the young people, those were the ones that led the march in Tiananmen Square, are dissatisfied, that undermines their internal strength. And certainly when that's happening, some people incorrectly try to use, an outward sign of military force to cover these things up. So I would worry about that. But again, I think you've got to go back to the fundamentals. We've got to be, as George Washington said, we've got to be prepared for war. That's the way to keep the peace. We've got to improve deterrence. We've got to modernize our nuclear deterrent. We've got to modernize our military and deal with the world the way it is, not the way the world we would like it to be.
And there's many that are saying that this debt ceiling deal over the weekend does not help our military. And that's something we're going to get into later on in the show today. General Arnold Punaro. Thank you very much, General. It's good to see you as always.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
All right.